They say that the true measure of a man isn't how he handles his success, but how he crawls out of the deepest, darkest hole of his life. For me, that hole was dug over 6 long years of a marriage that slowly, painfully withered into nothing. When my wife finally packed her bags and left, the silence in our house wasn't just quiet. It was heavy. It was a suffocating reminder that I had become a ghost in my own home. I was 32 years old, and I felt like my life was already over. I had spent the better part of a decade being the safe guy, the one who didn't make waves. In that long relationship, I had let my fire go out. I stopped caring about my health, my energy, and worst of all, my own masculine pride. I had developed a deep, gnawing insecurity about my physical dimensions and my ability to perform under pressure. I felt like a piece of outdated hardware in a world that had moved on to something faster and more powerful. For 6 months after the divorce, I didn't even look at another woman. I was terrified. I was convinced that if I tried to get back on the market, I would be exposed for the fraud I felt like I was. I felt physically limited, as if my body was permanently stuck in a low-power mode. But eventually, the loneliness became louder than the fear. I decided to try one of those dating apps, and against all odds, I matched with a woman who felt entirely out of my league. She was vibrant, intense, and had a way of looking at you that made you feel like you were under a microscope. Our first date was at a high-end lounge downtown. I spent the whole night trying to say the right things, trying to hide the fact that I hadn't been with anyone but my ex-wife in years. The chemistry was there, or at least I thought it was. When we eventually went back to her place, I felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, but it was quickly replaced by that old, cold dread. I knew deep down that my body wasn't ready. I could feel the lack of weight, the lack of presence. I felt small even before the clothes came off, and when they finally did, the nightmare I had played out in my head 1,000 times became a reality. I couldn't achieve any sense of structural integrity. My body simply wouldn't respond to the signal. The silence in her bedroom was deafening. I looked at her, hoping for a shred of empathy, but all I saw was a slow, cruel smirk spreading across her face. Then she let out a short, dry laugh that sounded like glass breaking. She looked right at me, eyes filled with a mix of amusement and genuine disgust, and said the words that shattered what was left of my soul. "Wow, no wonder your wife left you. Sorry, but I'm not interested in this." I didn't defend myself. I didn't even try to explain. I just felt a wave of nausea hit me. I got dressed in a daze, my ears ringing with that line about my wife. It was the ultimate confirmation of my greatest fear. I wasn't just a failure in the bedroom. I was a failure as a man. I walked out of her building into the cold night air, and for a moment, I considered just giving up entirely. I felt like a broken machine that was beyond repair. But as I drove home, that nausea turned into a cold, hard knot of rage. Not just at her, but at the biological prison I had been living in. I realized that the safe guy had to die. I needed to find out why my body had betrayed me, and I needed to fix it, no matter what it took. I went into a state of total isolation. I called in sick for 2 weeks and stayed away from everyone I knew. I turned my living room into a research center. I spent 16 hours a day reading medical journals, studying vascular biology, and trying to understand the hydraulics of the male body. I realized that my problem wasn't nervousness. It was a total breakdown of my endothelium. I discovered that this microscopic layer of cells, which lines every blood vessel in our bodies, is the actual commander-in-chief of masculine expansion. Its job is to produce nitric oxide, which in turn creates a molecule called cGMP. This cGMP is what tells your blood vessels to relax and open up to their absolute maximum capacity. The problem is that as we deal with stress, aging, and environmental toxins, our bodies start overproducing an enzyme called PDE5. Think of cGMP as the expansion signal and PDE5 as the contraction signal. In a healthy man, these two are in balance. But in a man like me, stressed, sedentary, and psychologically defeated, the PDE5 becomes a permanent brake on the system. It clamps down on the blood vessels, preventing them from ever reaching their full structural magnitude. I wasn't born small. I was just biologically suppressed. my body was incapable of holding the volume of blood required for a commanding presence because the brake was stuck to the floor. I realized that I didn't need a temporary chemical pill that would leave me with a racing heart and a blurred vision. I needed to recalibrate my internal chemistry. I needed to wake up my dormant endothelium and flip the switch on the cGMP production. I needed a way to unfold my true physical scale from the inside out. This led me to develop a very specific protocol that I started calling the Vigor Routine. I was looking for ingredients that acted like a biological key to unlock the expansion that had been suppressed for years. If you've ever felt that soul-crushing silence in the bedroom, you know exactly the kind of hell I was in. You aren't a failure. You're just operating under a biological blockage. Your body is capable of far more volume, firmness, and magnitude than you've ever been allowed to see. I found the exact protocol to override the PDE5 brake and unlock my true physical footprint through the Vigor Routine. The first week of the Vigor Routine was a period of internal reconstruction. I didn't see huge changes overnight, but I felt a shift in my base energy. The chronic fatigue that had followed me since my divorce started to evaporate. By day 10, the heaviness began. I woke up feeling a physical presence that I hadn't experienced in over a decade. My body was finally starting to respond to the cGMP signals. I was unclamping. By the third week, the transformation was undeniable. I wasn't just functional again, I was expanding into a version of myself that I didn't even know existed. The structural integrity was reaching a level of rock-solid density that felt powerful. I felt like I had finally reclaimed the territory that my ex-wife and that cruel date had tried to convince me I never had. I was no longer a ghost. I was a force. On day 30, I was ready. I knew exactly where she would be on a Friday night, that same lounge where she had first lured me into her trap. I didn't go there to beg for a second chance. I went there to show her exactly what she had lost. I walked into the room and didn't even look for her. Within 10 minutes, I felt her eyes on me. She didn't recognize me at first, but she could feel the presence. When she finally realized it was the same sad guy she had laughed at a month ago, her jaw literally dropped. Her previous arrogance completely gone, replaced by a raw, naked attraction. You look different," she stammered, her eyes scanning my body with an intensity that told me everything I needed to know. We didn't stay long. She practically dragged me back to her apartment. This time, as we entered her bedroom, the power dynamic had completely inverted. I wasn't the anxious guy hoping for approval. I was the one in total control of the room. When the clothes fell this time, there was no laughter. There was a sharp, audible gasp as she saw the magnitude of the man I had become. She couldn't believe the transformation. The limited volume she had mocked was replaced by a physical footprint and a structural firmness that left her completely speechless. I gave her the best night of her life. I had a level of stamina and a relentless physical power that pushed her to her absolute limits. She was breathless, overwhelmed, and completely broken by the experience. She kept whispering, "How? What did you do?" over and over again. She was obsessed with the new man I was, but as she lay there in the afterglow, looking at me with a reverence that was almost pathetic, I felt absolutely nothing for her. The revenge wasn't in the act itself. It was in the realization that I was now far beyond her reach. The next morning, while she was still asleep, I got dressed in silence. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave a text. I walked out of that apartment for the last time, and as I hit the street, I felt a sense of closure that no therapy or divorce settlement could ever provide. I had proven to myself that I was enough, and I had turned her into the one who was left wanting more. My phone didn't stop vibrating for the next week. She sent dozens of messages, first to begin a conversation, a few hours later to invite me to another date, then to ask me to come over, and then again and again. She asked why I was ignoring her, apologized for the first time, begged for a second chance, but I kept ignoring her and moved on with my life. She became a footnote in my story, the one who laughed and then lived to regret it every single day. I didn't achieve this transformation through willpower alone. I achieved it because I decided to stop fighting my own biology and started supporting it. The secret was Vigor Long. During those 30 days of isolation, Vigor Long was the foundation of everything I did. It was the only formula I found that actually combined all the endothelial restoring compounds I had researched, like beetroot for nitric oxide production, maca for hormone balance, and grapeseed to protect the vascular walls from oxidative stress. It didn't just mask the symptoms, it addressed the root cause of my suppressed masculinity. It helped me unclamp the PDE5 brake and finally allowed my body to reach its absolute biological maximum. You don't have to live with the ghost of who you used to be. You don't have to accept the pity or the laughter from women who don't understand the struggle you're going through. The Vigor Routine is the path out of that hole. The science of vigor. Long is what allowed me to reclaim my magnitude and turn my greatest humiliation into my greatest victory. If you're ready to see her face change from mockery to total shock, if you're ready to become the man she will never be able to forget, then stop waiting. Click the link below, secure your supply of Vigor Long, and begin your own 30-day vanishing act. You have a full Temastes Day money-back guarantee to prove to yourself that your potential is limitless. Take your power back today and make them regret every word they ever said against you. If my story resonated with you, or if you're currently in that dark place I was in after my divorce, please subscribe to this channel. I'm going to continue sharing the raw, unfiltered truth about masculine restoration and the science of reclaiming your edge in a world that wants to keep you small. Don't forget to check out the Vigor Long link in the description. It's the exact tool I used to rebuild my life from the ground up. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll dive deeper into the biology of power. Stay strong.